Hillary Clinton, who has been friends with Weinstein, benefiting from his donations to her Senate and presidential campaigns, also broke her silence today, 5 days after the allegations broke. A spokesman releasing a statement under heavy pressure, writing, quote, "I was shocked and appalled by the revelations about Harvey Weinstein. The behavior described by women coming forward cannot be tolerated. Their courage and the support of others is critical in helping stop this kind of behavior." Again, this statement came only after incredible pressure. Even last night, Clinton spoke for 90 minutes at a book signing. She was asked about sexism and misogyny. She was happy to talk about both, but she completely ignored Weinstein.
You know, don't let it be something that people sigh over or get upset about and then forget. This is endemic to our political system, to business, to the media, to every part of society. So don't be afraid to talk about it and take it on. Misogyny is deeper. It's a form of hatred of women. It's an attitude of just such negative, almost virulent dislike of women. It's rooted in power and the power relationship. And there's a pattern to it.
All of which, of course, was evident with Harvey Weinstein. It's good Clinton broke her silence. Of course, it is too bad she was one of the last to do so. After all, she wrote this in her book about her loss to Donald Trump, quote, "That doesn't mean I'll ever run for office again. It does mean I will speak out on the causes I care about." One of her biggest, of course, is women's issues.
More and more people coming out admitting they knew pretty much what Harvey Weinstein was up to and yet said nothing. Jane Fonda now says she's ashamed for not going public with what she knew before. Listen.
I found out about Harvey about a year ago, and I'm ashamed that I didn't say anything right then.
Why didn't you? You're so bold.
I was not that bold because I guess it hadn't happened to me, and so I didn't feel it was my place.
Why didn't you? You're so bold. You're such a good person. Ugh. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton wishes people would stop talking about Harvey Weinstein, a major donor to her, and go after President Trump instead. At the same time, though, she says countless allegations against her husband are just old news.
This kind of behavior cannot be tolerated anywhere, whether it's in entertainment, politics. Well, you know, after all, we have someone admitting to being a sexual assaulter in the Oval Office.
And yet in your book, the three women brought onto stage by Trump attacking your husband, and you kind of dismissed them. Was that the right thing to do? Are you sure about that?
More than kind of dismiss them. Tammy Bruce is undismissible. She's a radio show host, and she joins us tonight. Tammy, what do you? I mean, look, I don't. None of these. Hillary Clinton didn't sexually assault anybody. On the other hand, if you hold yourself up as a defender of all women, you probably ought to defend all women, shouldn't you?
Yeah, you should. And this is what's a real tragedy for me as a feminist. The feminist movement clearly has been a fraud all these decades. We have a moment in time where these women, Jane Fonda, Donna Karan, Hillary Clinton, Helen Mirren, Emma Thompson, women who hold themselves up as feminists, were in fact distracting everyone with attacks on Donald Trump. And you heard Hillary Clinton say an admitted sexual assaulter. That is a lie. He never did, because he is not. And to move that effort to try to distract people is part of the crime here, because while they're doing that and trying to smear a political opponent with a contrived dynamic, in ignoring the carnage in their own town, how many women, while Jane Fonda was silent as an example, and Hillary Clinton was going to parties with Harvey Weinstein, how many young women, how many more in that year were thrown into the Harvey Weinstein volcano?
Well,
These are the questions that they have to face. And Jane Fonda being ashamed is not enough. She made a decision. What was happening last year when her friend, I believe it was Rosanna Arquette, who told her, what was happening? Well, the campaign was happening. And being honest about what was happening would ruin the Democrat narrative. It would ruin their narrative about their political opponent. So somehow there was a decision that this was preferred, that this would be the distraction about a false distraction and claim by the Democrats. So as feminists and all of us, not only do these women who are established need to speak up in order to change this environment, which we all want changed, but their silence does in fact contribute to the continuation of this horror that's unfolding.
What I found so fascinating about that clip from the Hillary Clinton interview that we played was that she was being interviewed by an English reporter, by a Brit. Only only a British reporter would have asked her as directly as he did. No American reporter ever would say, wait a second, what about these women who claimed your husband abused and raped them and you dismissed them as liars?
Great point.
Why doesn't anybody ever say that? It's such an obvious point.
Well, it's because there's a deference to her. I mean, she is the hero, and it's difficult. For me, this is difficult.
Yes.
For all of us, my generation, her generation, is the one that came, before was to set this table so that we could take our power and make lives that best suited us. And here they are in the moment of need in the 21st century, while they're here and can make an impact, betraying us. And that becomes more of the issue. Now, you saw it with Christiane Amanpour, also with Jane Fonda, being very gentle, whereas at least Fonda admitted it. And the fact is that becomes part of the problem. When it comes to the huge Democrat donor and fundraiser of Harvey Weinstein, it does go beyond him, and it's all been a fraud of making people look at a shiny object, at Donald Trump, when in fact everything they were complaining about was happening in their own home.
Yeah, in spades. Tammy Bruce, thank you for that summation.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Tucker.
it. TMZ also hosts Objectified on Sundays at 8 p.m. right here on Fox. We're proud to have him. He has the very latest on this story and has from day one. Harvey, what is the latest?
Well, the latest is pretty shocking that Harvey Weinstein's daughter called 911 at about 11 this morning and reported that her dad was suicidal and depressed. And there was a major argument that went down outside of her home. Weinstein was there. They took it into the street. He was screaming at his daughter, "You're making it worse." He tried flagging down a random car to get away, didn't get in the car. They went back in the house. Harvey came back out, jumped in a black Suburban. Before the police arrived, they came roaring over because of the 911 call. And at that point, Remy, the daughter, told police, well, it wasn't really a suicide attempt. It was just a family dispute. So she backed off what she had called about. But, obviously, this is a guy whose world collapsed. His wife left him. He lost his job. He is now the subject of scorn and ridicule all over the world. So it seems like it's taken its toll.
So I thought he had left the country, was planning to go to rehab in France. That was the announcement. Is that still going to happen?
Well, we didn't say France. We broke the story that the plan yesterday was for him to take a plane out last night and go to Europe. We don't know where in Europe, but we said Europe. It could have been France. It could have been somewhere else. It changed. He did not go last night. I don't want to say what I know right now, but I will tell you that I wouldn't necessarily bet money that Harvey Weinstein is leaving the country.
Right.
That story will develop over the next
So we're
8 to 10
hearing,
hours.
and I don't know if you can comment on this, that he's the subject of a federal investigation, FBI investigation. Could that be related to what you just said?
Yeah, look, I have heard this, Tucker. It seems insane to me. I can't believe that's the case. I mean, this is not a federal crime. If there is a crime, he hasn't been charged with anything yet. So I know the story. It seems outlandish to me that the federal government would launch an abstract investigation where there's no criminal investigation that we even know of, thinking that he's going to flee the country. First of all, he's allowed to leave the country because there hasn't been a crime alleged yet. So it doesn't make any sense.
Well, he can go
anywhere he wants to go.
I mean, he's been accused
Well, he can go anywhere he wants to go.
Women. That's true.
He can go anywhere he wants to go. So what's the Justice Department investigating?
Right. So
what are they investigating?
He's been accused by a number of women of rape, so that.
Well, but they haven't even filed civil lawsuits. But if they do,
that's right. That's true.
But still, even if they do, that's still not any basis for the Justice Department to get involved. Right. He can go to Europe and stay there forever, and what's going to happen if there's a civil lawsuit is there'll be a default judgment. But this story makes no sense, and that's why it just doesn't make any sense to me.
So the question is, I think at this stage, who knew what when? You've been there an awful long time. Is it fair to say, can you corroborate what I'm hearing from friends of mine in Los Angeles, that this was stuff that people talked about? Maybe not with the level of detail we have, but that this is not a shock, really.
I think that's exactly right. That there have been rumblings of this for a long, long time, many, many years. And I have heard it. I never heard specifics. I never heard a specific name attached. But it was just kind of lore in the city and talked about by people, right, some of whom worked for the company and left. I know some of them, and they talked. But I never knew the level of specificity that we're hearing now. I do know, and I think you've heard it as well, obviously, for example, Sharon Waxman, who was working at the New York Times in 2004, actually wrote a story about him allegedly procuring women outside the country. And according to her, in 2004, Weinstein went to the New York Times and they ultimately gutted the article. So that's what she says. People talked about it. There were definitely people looking into it, but nothing was ever reported.
Yeah. Harvey Lemon, thanks a lot for joining us.
Okay,
welcome to Fox.
Thank you.